Target is the target of an LGBTQ targeted lawsuit. This is the focus group.
They're all business, except when they're not. It's the focus group with Tim Bennett and John Nash.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to the focus group. Tim Bennett here, as always, with Mr. John T. Nash. Coming to you live we're not bi-coastal, we're same coastal. How would you say that?
You know, we have a couple of listeners who are grammarians or grammar police, and boy, did we just cross some lines there. We're in the same time
coastal
zone. Coming to you from the same time zone.
Coming to you from the same time zone, East.
Yeah.
And the Eastern time zone. So we are the focus group, and you can learn all about us at focusgroupradio.com. While you're there, you'll also find our sponsors, which are on the right-hand margin, including Deep Discount. Be sure to click on them and shop away. By going through our site, we get credit for it, so we appreciate that. And you can also learn about all our shows and find all of our media houses there, including our podcast, which is TFG Unbuttoned. We are now in our 15th year. Somebody asked me how long we were doing this the other day. I couldn't believe we were doing it for 15 years. Well, it's 15, we're pretty sure, 2008, I think, and if we go back to XM days. And so, yes, you'll find all of our media housed there for free download. And thanks for following along with us today. So, Mr. Nash, how has your week been thus far? Your weekend, or whatever you want to.
Last week was good. The weekend was quiet and good. I have to say, we have friends of ours who took a vacation home up in upstate near our place, and the wife, she was not so thrilled with the weather they were having. And I have to say that, you know, we haven't really had like these long stretches of dry, sunshiny days.
Right.
It's usually been, you know, a day or two, and then the clouds come in the whole bit. But a couple of little things for you. So I remember I told you that I got a package in the mail from one of our listeners, Billy, who sent me a DVD called Jumpers, which featured Hayden Christensen, who played Anakin Skywalker in Star Wars. And I got a note from Billy. He's like, the movie's yours to keep. And yes, you got to watch it because it has Hayden Christensen. And then Billy mentioned to me that they're doing the Ghent fly-in again. I don't know if you remember this from like 2 years ago.
Right. Didn't you and Bob go down?
Yes. I met Billy at this local grass airstrip, which is a really beautiful area. And all these gorgeous little planes came in. So we're going to try to meet Billy again there. I think it's early September, and there's a rain date as well. It's like some kind of pancake breakfast. We didn't do the food things. We just watched everybody come in on these incredible private planes. These little planes.
Little pancake breakfast. I love pancakes. I was thinking about those over the weekend.
Bob found pancakes in the freezer section at the grocery store.
Right.
And the brand is like the Waffle Kings, or I forget the name of it. It's like a little cartoon thing on the front. You put two in a paper towel for 45 minutes in the microwave. They
45
taste
seconds.
45 seconds. Sorry.
45 minutes, it'd be a puck.
It would be a pile of ash. It tastes like they just came off a griddle. They're delicious.
Kidding me.
They're fantastic, yeah. I brought some up to my mom when I stayed with her when her husband was skiing. And I said, do you want some pancakes? Oh, don't go to the trouble, honey. It's such a mess.
Well, that's the problem.
And she's sitting there, and I go, beep, 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 the microwave. And then she loved those. Now she has to have them, too.
Yeah, you'll have to tell me, what was the name of them? Do you remember the name of them again?
Yeah, I took a picture of it. I'll get it on my phone.
Let me know, and we'll post it to Facebook, because people will ask about it. And
okay.
Because you're right. The problem with pancakes is nobody wants to go mix the batter. Or
No.
I don't have enough milk, or I don't have milk, or I don't the eggs, and mix. Now, somebody did tell me that the secret to fluffy or thicker pancakes, and I've been guilty of this, is you're not supposed to beat the batter is supposed to be lumpy. They said don't make it thin. If you make it thin, the pancakes get very, very tiny and slivery, and don't come out like big fluffy pancakes. So that's a bit. So yeah, you're not supposed to make it very thin. You're supposed to leave it kind of a little lumpy.
And when you were a kid, did your parents prep the grill? Like there was always the first waffle or pancake that was a mess that came off because it was prepping the grill, and we all would wait like greedily. We wanted the grill prepper.
My mom, last time I was in Connecticut, she made pancakes, and God bless her. But whip. I don't know if she used Bisquick or whatever she used, but I love pancakes. I like pancakes and sausage, or pancakes and bacon. There was a Wawa down here. The convenience store was selling eggs. They would do 2 pancakes with an egg in the middle with, some cheese or bacon or something. And they were using the pancakes as the roll, which was short-lived.
Do you think the reason you like the sausage with the pancakes is because sausage and maple syrup actually are interesting, and because it gets mixed up with the pancakes,
Spice and sweet, yeah.
Yeah.
I was not a big. My brother would use enough syrup to do the pancakes to do the back, to do the backstroke. I was very limited. I'm the same way with frosting. I can't eat a cake full of frosting or a cupcake. I wipe it all off. I don't like a lot of frosting, and I don't like a lot of heavy syrupy stuff. But I want a little bit, but I don't like a lot.
Yeah. You remember we used to have we used to do cupcakes in the studio now and then when we were at Sirius.
Oh, yeah.
And you used to have, there were some cupcakes that were good, but others, it was basically like a wedge of buttercream on the top of a flaky, dry cake. And you're like, neither side of this is good. Too much frosting, cake is dry.
No, it's hard to find a good cupcake, I think.
I agree.
And it's hard to find a good donut anymore. I've been trying to.
Really?
There's a place in Jersey, McMullen's in Collingswood, New Jersey, which I think makes the best donuts in the world. And but down here at the beach, well, it's hard to find anything here at the beach. Pizza's not very good, if you ask me. Pizza's horrible. It's hard to find
another winter in a summer town coming up.
Spending the winter in a summer town, tourists are forgiving, right? When you come to a resort area, you're forgiving and realize you're going to overpay. But when you have to live here, you don't want to overpay, and you're not so forgiving. So.
Now, you do have some incredible, so we went, was it Mike's Fish? Where did we go down?
Matt's Fish Camp.
Matt's Fish Camp.
Yeah.
In fact, Joe Biden and Jill just ate there recently. The president did. That place is fantastic.
Yes.
The food was great, and you knew that. And you guys go there a lot, right?
Yeah. No, there's some places we go to quite often, but it's like anything again in a resort town. I think New York prices are cheaper. I should not have to pay $18 for a Caesar salad, or I should not have to pay $22 for a hamburger, or $28 for pasta. The Chinese food down here, $30 for General Tso's chicken. At
$30
at the one local restaurant. Now, it is delicious, and it is almost like gourmet, but it's $30. And so I did takeout for 4 of us, in the Chinese restaurant. We did not have a lot of leftovers. It was close to $200, which I think is a lot of money. Here I'm bitching.
No, look, we do a lot of our own cooking, and we it's just what we do, and it's always a shock when we go out and the bill gets put in front of you like, whoa, wait a minute, I had this, and the,
Well, drinks now are $15, $16 dollars or more. Glass of wine, $20. Outrageous, I think. I don't know. I'm grumpy that way.
Do you want to blame the president for that?
No.
Well, everybody else does.
No. I mean, last time I was in Philly, I think I'd gone out with Matt, and I was like, oh my God, it's like a bar. I thought I was in, Des Moines. Prices in Philly seem so cheap compared to here. So.
Tim, is Rittenhouse Square still like the jewel of the city?
Yes. Yeah. In Philadelphia, yes.
Yeah, and the brownstones around there. And there were some incredible restaurants around the square itself. One was part of a hotel I think we went to once. But I just saw a CBS This Morning show about a restaurant that was taken over by some dynamic chefs. I think it was called Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, or Saturday, Sunday.
It was Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
Friday, Saturday, Sunday. And the chefs that took over said that they had a really loyal and big clientele who were really upset, like when the new chefs took over, because they couldn't come in and get the same clam chowder they've been ordering for 40 years. But slowly but surely, they became a new big powerhouse. Now people love the restaurant, but it's been there for a long time.
Oh, gosh. It was one of the restaurants back in the probably late 70s that started the restaurant renaissance in Philly. And I used to love it. And the big thing about them was all their wines, no matter what they were, only had a markup of $10.
Only 10, no matter what.
$10 markup, no matter what it was, which was great because you didn't feel like you were getting ripped off when you're buying a shitty bottle of wine for $50 that cost $8. So that was their big thing. And then they went defunct for a couple of years, and then someone did come in and take it over, revamp the whole inside, change the menus, but still kept the name. And it's in a great location right off the square. It's a great restaurant. I was there with Cedar and Mary Alicia, actually. It was the last time I ate there.
Wow.
Pre-pandemic, and we had a great meal. So.
And I wonder if was it called Fez, or what was the Mexican place we used to always go to in the neighborhood?
Oh, Elvez,
that's it. Is that still there?
That's still there. Still there, still going, still doing well. It's a Steven Starr restaurant. Philadelphia has Steven Starr, who is kind of this restaurant king, and he has a lot of great restaurants in town. But Elvez, yes, still there, still doing well.
Elvez is
Consistently good food.
and very good margaritas, might I say.
Yeah.
You and I have walked out of there like, okay, that was one too many.
Yeah, no, I think all cities are going through a little bit of a
shift.
reboot with the pandemic, and so much empty, as you know, in New York, so much of these office buildings are empty, and they're trying to figure out how. I don't want to say empty, but they certainly don't have the floors. They don't need the floor space that they once did for a huge financial institution or agencies and so forth. And they're trying to figure out, how do you repurpose some of these big old buildings that can't necessarily be divided up?
No.
But how do you repurpose them? You can't make them all apartments.
Well, you and I could have a whole conversation about that, because I've read so many interesting articles with engineers and architects talking about how you just don't convert an office building.
Right.
They're not set up for that because of the services are in the core of the building, whereas you have to have separate plumbing for every single unit. There is a building down in the Wall Street area here in New York that they converted. They were specific in saying it was a rental building. It would never be like you would buy there, because they assume people are going to be there for a short amount of time. And they said the complexities of adding all this stuff, like the individual bathrooms, just was enormously expensive.
Jeez. Remember the office on Lafayette Street?
Yeah.
We would use. I still have a realtor keep contacting me, say they want to buy the building. I keep telling him $30 million. He contacts me every week. Are you interested in selling 419 Lafayette? Yes, $30 million.
But we never owned the building.
I know. That's why, and I've told him that, but now he still keeps asking, so I threw a price on it. I don't know.
That was Sunshine Suites.
Yeah,
that was
he hasn't bid yet.
A co-working space.
And I don't know why I'm getting the email. Are you interested in selling? We've got a buyer interested in buying 419 Lafayette. Yeah, $30 million.
That co-working space was crazy. I remember one time Bob was doing some freelance for us, and we were there, and there was this guy talking at the top of his lungs. GoToMeeting.com. Here's the password. Well, apparently everybody on the floor heard the password, and then you hear him say really loudly, "I don't know who those people are. We're gonna just do the meeting. I don't know who those people are." So everybody signed into his GoToMeeting.com meeting.
That's funny.
The joys of shared workspace, right?
Here's my credit card number. No.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. Like here's 3334. Yeah.
That's a good one. Well, Mr. Nash, without further ado, what caught your eye this week?
What caught your eye? Here's what Tim and John found.
Okay, remember a couple of weeks ago I told you one of my favorite movies as a kid, and the very first James Bond movie I saw in the movie theater was The Spy Who Loved Me. So I found this article. It popped up literally. It's a new article, but the events that this article talks about have taken place already. It started in 1989 and finished in 2013. But a man basically bought a shipping container. It's almost like, when they have storage wars, you buy the storage shed and whatever's inside's inside, you get it. He bought a shipping container for $100. He sold the contents of it to Elon Musk at an auction back in 2013, it looks like, for about $1 million. Well, what he found inside this container was one of 8 vehicles that were used in the filming of the movie The Spy Who Loved Me.
Wow.
And basically, it was a Lotus Esprit. Yeah. And the car was one of 7, one of 8 that was transformed. In this movie, Bond drives this car. This is what he gets from, British Secret Service. The car turns into a submarine when it goes in water. Like the tires flip up and they go in and these little fins come out. So when he bought this thing, this guy, this contractor in London bought the thing in 89. They found this lump in the middle of the thing covered in blankets. They flip it over, and there's this a wheelless sports car. So this guy says, "Hey, I think you've got one of the James Bond cars," his friend.
Wow.
They contacted a guy named Doug Redenius, who's the co-founder of the Ian Fleming Foundation. He authenticated the car and said, yes, you have one of the Lotus cars that was transformed into Bond's submarine missile shooting car in The Spy Who Loved Me. in fact, the car has a nickname. This car's nickname is Wet Nelly because this particular one was the one that could, in fact, go underwater. It wasn't, I think they did stuff where they pulled it along and, it wasn't really a submarine, but it could be underwater. Eventually, the man who bought the shipping container put it up for sale at auction. And, the car itself was probably about $100,000 to build in the 70s to adapt it and change it. In September of 2013, the car sold for about $1 million on the auction block in London, and only now has the buyer been made public, and the buyer was Elon Musk.
Wow.
He bought the car for $997,000. He said while he initially purchased the Lotus Esprit anonymously, Musk later put out a statement saying, "It was amazing as a little kid in South Africa to watch James Bond and the Spy Who Loved Me drive his Lotus Esprit off a pier, press a button, and have it transform into a submarine underwater." And then he says, "I was disappointed to learn that it can't actually transform. What I'm going to do is upgrade it with a Tesla electric powertrain and try to make it transform for real." So it's in his possession. I don't know if he's done anything with it since he bought it. But I just think this is one of those weird things. This is like finding a Declaration of Independence, right? Like you buy a shipping container for $100, and in it is a prop car from a very famous James Bond movie, and boom, you sell it later, you make $1 million. Talk about a return on investment.
Yeah,
right?
well, every once in a while I'll stumble on one of those storage wars things or something where the
Yes.
people buy the storage containers, and it's a crapshoot, right? You never know. So for $100, somebody had a shipping container and thought, well, I often wondered why these companies never looked inside first, but I guess that's the fun of it, or the thrill of it, is you have no idea what's in there, and they have no idea, so they just want to get rid of it and move it. But what a find, huh? That's wonderful.
Yeah, and that Musk got it. He could afford it.
Right.
If there's anybody in the world who could transform it in because of his money, that
Right.
he could transform it into a working little submarine, it's probably him. But I doubt it's worth the effort. It's still cool as a piece of movie memorabilia, though.
Jeez. Mine deals with cars too, of a different sort, but these are the self-driving cars, or these cars that are self-driving or driverless cars. Autonomous vehicles, they're calling them, and they become increasingly popular in San Francisco. The headline here is, "San Franciscans are having sex in robo-taxis and nobody's talking about it." So
I read this article too. This is good.
Yeah, they thought if you ever thought about getting down and dirty in a robo-taxi, that you're not alone. Apparently, it's a popular thing. And so these are the driverless cars. And what's happened is people are now having the thrill of getting in a car and having sex, all kinds of sex. You can imagine, from very simple, kissing or making out, all the way to doing the deed. There's one woman they highlight in here called Megan. I don't know whether that's her real name or not. She says she's in her 20s. She took her first ride. It was a late night excursion, and she and her friend did it just for the purpose of having sex. She said, "We got in and we got straight to it." And this car was a cruise. She said one thing led to another, and she just had a robe on. She had no underwear, nothing else on, and her slippers. And they got in there with their accomplished, a 30-something guy named Alex. And they performed at least 6 separate sex acts, they've said, in these taxis. They have a thrill for it. She said there's no boundaries. And obviously it's exciting because you're in public. Sometimes people see them and look in and laugh. Other times people she said they steam up depending upon the weather. It could steam up the windows and then you won't see. And they love the thrill of it and kind of the public, I guess, exhibition of it. And toward the end of the article, they asked if they were going to keep doing it or not. And she said, sure, why not? She said, we're just going along for the ride. There's really no rules about this. So, of course, if you were in a taxi cab or an Uber driver, of course, you're not going to behave this way. But apparently what they found, and, talk about Elon Musk again, people have found all these creative uses for self-driving cars. It initially came up after Tesla released its first autopilot feature nearly a decade ago. And CEO Elon Musk went viral for reacting to a Pornhub video of a couple having sex while it was on driverless autopilot. So, of course, I went to Pornhub to look. There are hundreds of videos of people having sex in cars that are driverless around San Francisco or whatever. So this is the thing. Started back in 2018. Someone actually did a study about it, John. And they said that this behavior, they knew that this behavior would happen. They don't know how to control it. These companies, Waymo and other robotaxi companies, Cruise, don't know how to surveil this. Now, they say they have cameras in all the cars, but they only use them to look at if there was an emergency or the car was damaged or there was trash left in the car and somebody complains, they'd go back and look to find out who was in the car. But other than that, these cameras do run all the time, but some of these people that are having relations in the car don't seem to care. And some are saying or challenging it now as an issue of privacy. You're also not allowed to smoke or vape in the cars. I don't know how you would know.
How would you even police that? Tim, at the beginning, you said something about this. She gets in with her robe and her slippers. Clearly, she knew
No, nothing else on.
This was planned.
Yeah.
When you said they were taking a cruise, is it possible that you just simply order up the cab to just drive you around for a specified amount of time? Is that?
Yeah. So there's two companies. One's Waymo and one I think is called Cruise. There's these robo taxis, but there's a number of companies that are putting these on the road. And so they said it's better than a hotel room, because what's happening is if you wanted to get down and dirty with somebody and you got a roommate or you want to do it, you're cheating on somebody, I guess. You could just order up a car and say you want to go. One particular trip they took was through the Golden Gate Park, the Golden Gate Bridge. But they said that there were so many spotlights that there were a number of times where people could really see inside the cabin of the car. Because the way a lot of the seating is, the seats and some of them face each other. They were showing pictures.
So basically, it was up to the passenger to choose a route they knew was going to be a 50-minute drive, or I want to go out to the airport, or because you couldn't just say to maybe you could
cheaper than renting a room.
Maybe you say I want a scenic drive around San Francisco, and there's a route that's already been programmed into the car or something. I mean, it's just for when I read this, that's where my mind went. I was like, don't you have to have a specific destination in mind?
Well, you could say if you knew it was going to take you 20 minutes or a half hour, right?
True.
So you knew, you jump in, boom, boom, boom. Then maybe it lets you out and you just get another car home. I don't know, but it seems to be the new thing, and now they're concerned because as these cars are making their way across the country, they're trying to figure out how they can stop this. And they also want to stop drinking and smoking of marijuana in the cars, which they can't seem to figure out either, although you're not allowed to do it. But how would you know? They said open container laws in California particularly are difficult because passengers, there's a loophole. If you had a bus or taxi cab, limousine for hire, you can drink. But drivers certainly aren't allowed to.
No.
But so Cruise and Waymo said that you're not allowed to drink in the car, drink or eat. You can drink or eat in the cars, but you can't consume alcoholic beverages. But I don't know how you could tell. You could just have something in a bag. They're not going to know what you're drinking.
Yeah, and you're not the one driving the car. So I'm not exactly sure how dangerous it is to have champagne in a car that's you're not even driving. But
yeah, this came from a publication called The Standard. They said the kind of the takeaway is this is another one of these technology things that's kind of got ahead of itself. Mm-hmm. And these companies don't know quite how to deal with it. And as they're now going to be headed to other cities, they're wondering if this is going to take on. But I'll tell you what, when I went and checked it out, apparently it's a thing. They're concerned about Amsterdam, which is supposed to get them next. And they said Amsterdam is going to prove to be another challenge for people. So.
You go to the weed store, you get because in Amsterdam it's always been kind of like you could do that, drive around the city. But let's go to the Waymo, let's go to the red light district. I mean,
and get weed and a whore, and off you go.
There you go. Yeah.
Doing around down to the windmill. I don't know. I've not yet been in one of these driverless cars. Our friend Tim has been in one. He says it's unnerving because you're really trusting, and there's, you have to trust the cars going to where it's supposed to go. I had a question as I was reading this though, because they talked about the police getting involved. People have reported seeing people having sex.
How do the police stop the car?
Well, how would you pull over a car that's driverless?
There must be something that
right. There's got to be, but they said that this was the California Highway Patrol is still trying to regulate how how to deal with all of these.
My initial thought
cars.
would be that the the police call in the plate number to whoever, Waymo or
I guess so.
Cruise.
Say pull over. I don't know.
And then they send a command to the car to safely pull over at the next possible opportunity, and it pulls over, and then boom.
There you go, Mr. Software Developer. See, now, if that hasn't happened, John, now this is an app we can sell for the California
it's a
Highway
feature.
Patrol. Right,
It's a feature. It's not a
app.
whole app. It's
Pull
a
over.
feature, yeah. Oh, we finally invented something.
Maybe call the Giddy Up. A pot on demand.
All the way from Denver. Yeah.
Yeah. So that's what it caught my eye this week. It's I don't know, an odd thing, I think, but I don't know. Will you get in a driverless car when the time comes?
I'm gonna be really hesitant. I'm like Tim. I'm like big Tim. I'm like, you know what? I like someone behind the wheel.
Yeah, I do too. Well, they said there was another horrible accident. As part of this story, somebody talked about how the car didn't detect a dog, ran over and killed somebody's dog. So, but no, these
That
driverless
happens,
cars, I don't know. I know they're talking about it here in Delaware, which is why they're putting a lot of these poles in, because a lot of the cars will be, these not telephone poles, but for your cell phones or whatever.
Yeah, for signal.
For signal, and that's going to help with these autonomous cars. But I think that's the last thing we need. So, our business birthday this week.
Everyone does celebrity birthday greetings, but the Focus Group is the only show in the universe that celebrates business birthdays.
I'm sure we must have mentioned her before along the way in the last 15 years on our business birthdays. I don't know if we've ever highlighted her for a birthday. But Madonna Louise Ciccone, born August 16th, 1958. Happy 65th birthday to Madonna. Can you imagine 65, Madonna? She's a music producer, actress, business person, and known as the Queen of Pop. She's, was born in Michigan. I had to laugh because we had the funny story. So, Madonna Ciccone, but I was at an event with Derek
Oh, I'm
Hartley.
so glad you're telling this. I was going to ask you to tell this. This is the Derek story.
Right, and this was our Sirius XM days, and because this event was in Philadelphia, Derek had come down from New York, and there was a bunch of X-level celebrities or XYZ level celebrities, if you could call a celebrity. And poor Derek and I were subject to this event. And the headliner was Christopher, who was Madonna's brother, who just wrote this horrible, scathing tell-all about Madonna. So he was the big headliner, and then we were supposed to be on some panel to do some sort of event.
And you were judges, too. You were
Judges, that's
judging
what it is,
some-
judges. And so his drag queen was having none of it. And, because she was the star of the show. And so the big wind-up is to introduce Christopher to the stage. And Derek and I are staying there back off into the, behind the curtain. And she says, "Ladies and gentlemen, please welcome Christopher Ciccone." We were laughing so hard, and Derek just very dryly, you can't write the script. I mean, it was so, people were laughing and he was mortified, pissed off, that he got the name wrong. But yeah, it's Madonna Ciccone. But she doesn't have to go by last name. It's like Cher. What's Cher's last name?
I have no idea. Isn't that funny? I have no idea.
Yeah. So she's 65. If you're watching the video, we have a couple of pictures of her. She's been criticized lately because she's had lots of, and she's talked about it. She's had lots of plastic surgery done, I guess, right? Mm-hmm. And some people were very critical of her. And I did see somebody write something that I thought was very, very smart. And they said, you could pick on Madonna for her trying to stay relevant. Women have a tough time as they age, different than men, particularly in this celebrity-filled world we live in. But they reminded everyone. They said for everybody who's being critical of Madonna, she was one of the first people that was out there and an ally, particularly to the LGBT community, and she should be respected for that. And I just thought that was a good perspective to put on it. That she really did push the envelope. She was known for pushing the envelope. And her influence, I certainly think, did help, particularly with Truth or Dare. She was very open about the LGBTQ members of her
The dance troupe.
troupe. And so it really was back in the 90s, early 90s and 80s. I thought she really did do a lot.
Do you remember
I think.
when you saw Truth or Dare?
Yes, I do. I saw it in Portland, Oregon. It was 1990. And I just remember black and white. I thought it was great. I still, if I've stumbled on it, it's a
Watch
great
it through.
documentary. Yeah,
Same here. We were coming back from a weekend in the Pines, and it had just premiered, and we all got off the train and went right down to the Chelsea cinemas. And you were correct in what you were saying earlier. Madonna gets a lot of flack for a lot of things these days. I think people just forget how huge she was and how she utterly transformed pop and dance music. And she created this whole mystique, and her whole career was all done before MP3s,
Right.
before the single track download. It was the album experience, and she nailed it. Every album came out as a hit after hit.
Yeah, they said so. I'll just, because there's a lot we all certainly all know about Madonna, but I'll just read a couple of the accolades. So she got to Manhattan in 1978. She left New York. She wanted a career in modern dance. Ended up playing in a band and then signed on with Sire Records in 1982. She had many successful global best-selling albums like A Virgin, True Blue, Ray of Light, Confessions on the Dance Floor. Her popularity was further enhanced by her roles in movies such as Desperately Seeking Susan, Dick Tracy, A League of Their Own, and Evita. She, as a businesswoman, founded the entertainment company called Maverick, or Maverick Records, in 1992. She also had interests in fashion design, children's books, and health clubs, and filmmaking. I had no idea she had a string of health clubs called Hard Candy Fitness. They started in 2010. They were mostly European and Asian based, and they went defunct in 2019. Given to various charities, she sold more than 300 million records worldwide. She's noted as the best-selling female recording artist of all time. She's also listed as one of the third highest certified female artists with 64.5 million album units. According to Billboard, she was the most successful solo artist in chart history. She's also the highest grossing solo touring artist of all time with 1.4 billion in concert ticket sales. And the Rolling Stone listed her as among the top 100 artists of all time for singers and songwriters. So Maverick, she started Maverick, which was her own record company with two other guys. And she started that in 1992. That also went, she sold out her interest in 2008, and then it closed in 2009. But, she signed on. That they did the book Sex for her. Remember the Sex, Veronica?
I remember that book, yeah.
And then put out a couple of her greatest hits albums. But one of the groups that she, one of the biggest successes they had was Alanis Morissette, with their Jagged Little Pill. That was under the Maverick.
Under that label.
Yeah. And there were a number of other acts along the way. But very smart business person. They said she was one of the few people that actually led an entertainment entity, similar to Lucille Ball. Remember when she led Desi Lou Productions? At Madonna was one of just a handful of women that actually was able to successfully run a big studio. So happy birthday, Madonna. 65, John.
Yeah, I know. And look, she's still putting out music. She's still with us. I think the only other act or performer who may be up in her stratosphere would be Kylie Minogue. And certainly these days, Taylor Swift. But I mean, this is why you have to love her, right?
Yeah, I was going to say Taylor Swift, maybe Lady Gaga, but you're right about the thing about Madonna was exactly what you said, that it was before MP3. You had to go you bought an album, you bought a CD, you bought the tape, right?
You went to the concert.
You went to the concert and did it all through hard work. Nobody could say she was lazy, and nobody could say she wasn't. You watch any of her concerts even now, they are down to the step. I mean, you don't miss a step, and to get it right, she's a perfectionist. So,
and
I've
also,
never been to a Madonna concert. Have you?
No, and did she ever leverage the power of MTV? I think she was one of those artists who clearly understood
knew what
was
she
going
was
on
doing,
there.
right? I mean, some of those. What was the one? She Express Yourself was, I think, the first one that. I mean, it was like a movie. She and Michael Jackson.
Well, like Papa Don't Preach, right?
Yeah,
Danny Aiello, who was, like he was an actor, played her father in that, and it was she was like a mini movie. Remember that?
Yeah. No, so happy birthday, Madonna, and
good birthday.
Yeah. So our shop talk this week, Mr. Nash, you had found this one, and I shook my head over it, but the headline is Stephen Miller's legal group sues Target over LGBTQ Pride collection backlash. So everybody knows that during this past Pride season, that there was backlash at Bud Light for using Dylan Mulvaney. And Target saw a lot of backlash based upon their Pride merchandise that they were selling, particularly some items directed specifically to the trans community. And so Stephen Miller, who was part of the former guy's administration, is in charge of something, or heads up something called America First Legal, which I guess I don't know what they're doing. I guess is it an anti-LGBTQ or
It's a
conservative
shareholder
think tank?
suit.
Is it?
Well, American First Legal is basically they are using the power of the lawsuit to bring companies in line who have diversity and equity and inclusion policies they don't like, et cetera. This was threatened against Anheuser-Busch and Bud Light because they were like, well, you wiped out all this investor value because of this thing you did. 1, 2, 3, 4 paragraphs down, I just stared at this and I thought to myself, are we living on the same planet? So you have to have standing to take someone to court. We've been hearing this over and over again. So what Miller has done in America First Legal, they've identified a shareholder. This is my favorite part. The investor leading the suit, Brian Craig, owns about $28,000 worth of company stock, which he purchased in April 2022. He claims to have lost close to half of his total investment. I just stared at this for a second, and I thought to myself, anybody who has a 401k or a portfolio
Lost that yesterday.
way more than that on some given times, and they made it back, et cetera. But you're telling me that you're going to go to court over this guy's $28,000 investment. You know there are institutions and banks that own way more Target stock that are worth millions of dollars, right? And they're not rattling the cage about this, but...
No, this would be essentially because he says he lost close to half, so $14,000. So you're suing over $14,000 loss over a very finite.
Boo hoo!
short
You knew
period
you
of
were
time.
buying a stock, and stocks aren't exactly savings bonds, right?
Yeah. No, I thought the same thing. I read that again. I thought, wait a minute, is this all that they're talking about?
Mm-hmm.
But this when you had sent this over and I read it and I just did a big sigh. I thought, part of this, so much of this anti-LGBTQ legislation or targeting, I think some of it is these groups are taking advantage of some of the disarray within the LGBTQ community. And because I think because we become so fractured in many ways, that they are totally relying on kind of the confusion and the fracture. We used to always say, or I always said, when you measure everything, you get nothing. We used to be very focused on HIV/AIDS, and it was marriage. And rather than now focusing on something like the Equality Act, we seem to have been veered off to, well, you're groomers, you're drag queens, you don't know about gender, we've gotten on all of these sidebar issues that have really just thrown gas on the fire for these right-wing groups. And I don't know how you pull it back in.
You know why it's so hard to pull back in? Because a lot of it's theatrics. I mean, like, for example, at the very bottom of this article, here's what the lawsuit Stephen Miller's group is filing. Here's what they want to do. They want to request that the court overthrow the company's board of directors and compensate Greg for his lost investment. So you're going to get rid of
$13,000.
Yeah, and by the way, Tim, what is the average salary a board member makes on a corporation in America these days? I mean, you could even take a guess. You're going to be close.
Yeah, I don't know.
200-some thousand, maybe. So you're gonna tell me you're gonna get rid of 7 or 8 directors making $2 or $3 million collectively. You're gonna get rid of them all. You're gonna give this guy a check for $14,000 out of his piddly little 28. I don't mean to insult anybody, but let's be real.
Yeah.
You bought an equity. It is not a guaranteed investment, and this could have been anything. Could have happened, right?
Yep.
It could have been tuna fish. Someone could have said, how dare you sell canned tuna? Tuna are smart, and we don't, it's just, I don't know.
And then they're going after diversity policies because at the end they also say that they've got their eyes on Kellogg, alleging its workplace diversity policies are unlawful. I don't know. I don't know where it stops or where
it doesn't. I clipped an article for this week. I'll just mention it. Skittles.
Right.
So, Tim, you and I were working with a client, and back in the early part of the year, you actually found images of Skittles Pride packs.
Right.
They changed their wrapper to black and white, and they usually feature on one side work by an LGBTQ artist that's in color. So for the month of June, Skittles usually gives back the rainbow, and they give it to artists. Someone just now clicked on the Skittles page to find out what the special wrappers were, which you can't even find in a lot of stores anyway. And now they're thinking of going after, we should do a Bud Light on Skittles, because how dare they change their packaging to black and white for 30 days and focus on some LGBTQ artists, because one of the illustrations had this little thing drawn in on a skateboard ramp that said Black Trans Lives Matter, and now everybody's up in arms. I don't know who everybody is, by the way, who's up in arms. I think it might be 5 people at a linoleum table in Florida called, what was that, at the women that do the Million Moms?
Million Mom March, which is about
The
3
Million
ladies
Moms
at
is like 5 at a cracked
table.
linoleum table.
No, but they've done a good job of
whipping it up.
Whipping it up and making this about the groomer thing, grooming, the drag queen story hours. So it's the poor kids. They made it a race issue. They're all spun up on Black Lives Matter. They made it a gender issue, and I think part of it is, you and I had talked on a sidebar once. The Human Rights Campaign used to be on top of a lot of this stuff. I think.
Front and center, yeah.
And there's really no, I don't want to say a national clearinghouse, but I was trying to figure, is there the ACLU maybe? I don't know. I don't know who is supposed to be helping or in the corner of
in our
the
corner. Well,
yeah.
GLAAD will issue a statement. A lot of organizations will issue a statement. I can issue a statement.
Yeah.
But it doesn't have the same impact as these blowhards doing these theatrics of, we're going to sue Target because this guy here invested $28,000, he lost $14,000 because of that Pride merchandise. There's certain people that take the bait, and we know who they are, and there's others who are like, oh my God, here we go again. We got all these problems in the world, and we're worried about it.
Worried about a bathing suit.
Yeah. So. Anyway, folks, we want to thank you for joining us here on the Focus Group. Please check out focusgroupradio.com. That's our website. You can learn about us there. Also, our Tuesday podcast, TFG Unbuttoned. And if you are already following us on an audio stream, you probably already get that. But if you want to check out the video for the Focus Group, if you just go to YouTube or focusgroupradio.com, and you'll find it all there. We want to remind everybody to please don't text and drive, especially in the summer. We see a lot of questionable driving on the road, is the way I would put it. I'm a trained Tim Bennett driver personally, and distraction was never allowed behind that front wheel when Bennett was sitting next to me in the passenger seat. Keep your eyes on the road. So,
are you still looking at your phone? Do you still use your phone for guidance, or do you have it clicked into the car now?
Clicked into the car. Now that it's part of the CarPlay
IP,
and it's part of the nav system, you and Brian loved that when I kept looking down at the cup holder.
We're
going to get killed.
Going straight.
Brian,
you love to look at a map.
Now that I relive that road trip in my head, I'm remembering why Brian would look at me funny sometimes, because he had his laptop out, and I keep looking down, and he'd kind of make a face like, it's 50 miles. We're not going anywhere. Just keep driving.
That was so hot.
101.
Horribly hot it was.
Yeah.
Anytime you and I have done a road trip, seems to be hot.
We picked the hottest week. Anyway, folks, please stay safe, and we'll see you in the new one.
It's The Focus Group with Tim Bennett and John Nash. Accessible on all platforms. Subscribe, like, and rate us on your platform of choice. Learn more at focusgroupradio.com.
That was a stunning focus group.